Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy, Roll Good. Today we have an interesting one for you. We're going to talk about a new sort of basically a third-party custom class created for 5th edition. This particular one was created by MCDM. But before we get started with that, if you are a new viewer to this channel or a returning viewer and you haven't quite hit that subscribe button yet, and you like what you see in this video and you want to see more content from me, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I have new videos coming out every Sunday and Wednesday, so you have those to look forward to. But yeah, today we're going to talk about this new class called the Illrigger. It's going to be a long video because there's a whole class to go through, as well as 5 subclasses, as well as some new items and spells that were designed for the class as well. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So first things first, we're going to talk about who is MCDM. They are a publishing company that was founded by Matt Colville. And if for whatever reason you are in the TTRPG space and you don't know who Matt Colville is, he's a pretty well-known game designer. He's worked briefly for Wizards of the Coast back in the day. And he's been running his own independent YouTube channel since about 2016, as well as he founded the company MCDM. MCDM creates third-party content for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. They are currently developing a proprietary system called Draw Steel that's probably due around the middle of next year from what I've seen. You can find their website down here below on the screen, as well as the link to the MCDM YouTube channel, as well as Matt Colville's personal YouTube channel. The MCDM YouTube channel focuses on a lot of their live plays and more information about their products and things like that. Whereas Matt Colville's channel is more focused on content about, creating and running games, particularly maybe a little geared more towards the DMs, but there's a lot of good information there for players as well. So if you wanted to go check them out, see what kind of products they have. I know some of their products are already available on D&D Beyond as well. I think like Flea Mortals is there, which is like a bestiary that they created. But they also have just a bunch of more stuff you can look at on their website. So what is the Illrigger then? The Illrigger was a custom class, basically a homebrew class created by MCDM. It was officially published in 2023, although it had gone through some revisions previous to that. So you might have already seen videos about it if you're sort of in tune with what is going on with MCDM. So it is a martial class. It has 5 subclasses. There are 8 new spells for that class. There are 5 retainers that are included in the product for it. Retainers are sort of like followers that you can include if you want to, as well as 2 Illrigger specific magic items. And the reason I'm talking about it today is that this was recently officially published on D&D Beyond. So previously only the Blood Hunter from Critical Role was the only class that was sort of published as sort of an unofficial class that was added to the main 12. But it is the only other class that was created by a third party that has programming built into it to work with D&D Beyond. So the Illrigger is sort of the most recent addition to that, and the first one since Wizards of the Coast bought D&D Beyond. So that might be a kind of a sign of things to come, that they might be adapting more third-party products and working them into their website as well, which is kind of exciting to see. I kind of hope, because I've been kind of hoping that they would treat D&D Beyond more of like a tabletop role-playing game version of Steam or something like that, where they allow people to make content for them and then host it on their page, and they get kickbacks and everything that way as well. So we'll see if there's more to come after this one, but let's go ahead and get talking about the Illrigger specifically. Looking at the lore and themes of this class, they do have a kind of a big lore section in the PDF that is available to you, or if you purchase it on D&D Beyond, they have the page dedicated to it. So according to MCDM, the Illriggers are members of what's called the Order of Desolation. These are basically Knights of Hell that were created in sort of a rare cooperation between the rulers of Hell, and each Illrigger, determined by subclass, is associated with an Archdevil patron, but their loyalty is first to the Hells and not to their patron. So they are there to sort of serve the greater benefit of the Hells and not necessarily of their individual patrons' machinations. For this reason, MCDM said that the Illrigger is typically going to be an evil-aligned class. Not saying that you have to be evil-aligned in order to play it, but by definition, you are serving the Hells, you are serving your Archdevil patron and their interests. So by definition, you are kind of geared towards the evil side of things, even if you aren't personally evil-aligned. And then when playing an Illrigger, they are described as intelligent, resourceful, tactical, and manipulative. They are expected to act independently without instruction or oversight from their Archdevil patron. And while the trust of their patron is one of the most important things to them, they would need help regarding something about their service to the Hells. They're more likely to reach out to another Illrigger or another member of that order rather than reach out to their patron or another servant of them. And so basically you don't want to go to your patron with problems, you only want to go to them with solutions. You don't want to go to them asking for help because they expect you to be able to do it without instruction from them. Moving on to the core features of the Illrigger class, they have a 1d10 hit die. For proficiencies, they have light armor, medium armor, and shields. They have simple and martial weapon proficiency, no tool proficiencies. The one area where they start to differ from the usual 5th edition class design is that they have saving throws in Constitution and Charisma. Usually the saving throws usually include their primary stat, and some other secondary or even tertiary stat is included as the second one. So this seems to be implying that Charisma is their primary stat, which isn't necessarily the case. It does determine the save DC for some of their things, and there's maybe a couple features that work on Charisma, but otherwise Charisma plays almost no role in the class. And then for skills, you can choose from 2 from Arcana, Athletics, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Investigation, Persuasion, Religion, or Stealth. And then as far as the equipment goes, you can see that they're using the old sort of pre-2024 version, which makes sense because it was created before 2024 came out. So you have 2 different equipment packages, one of which is sort of a medium armor, more strength-based set of gear, and the other is a light armor, more dex-based set of gear. Or you can choose the starting wealth of 5d4 times 10 gold. And then finally, if you wanted to multi-class with an Illrigger, you need to have a minimum of 13 in your charisma and a strength or dexterity of 13. And again, the fact that they put charisma before the other 2 also suggests to me that they are considering charisma the primary stat of this class. And this is also obvious because regardless of what's happening, Wizards of the Coast tends to put the ability scores in the order of the way they are on the character sheet, where it's strength, dex, con, and wiz, charisma. So the fact that they're putting charisma before strength and dexterity indicates to us that they're saying charisma is the primary stat. But to me, unless you're using one specific feature that we'll get to later, I don't think you should be putting all your points into charisma. You're still very much a strength or dex-based character. When you multi-class into Illrigger from another class, you do get the light, medium, and shield proficiencies, as well as the simple weapon and martial weapon proficiencies. And then specifically for spell slots, if you go into the Architect of Ruin subclass, which has some spellcasting in it, the document itself says you determine your available spell slots by adding half your Illrigger level rounded down. And I believe the fact that it says half your Illrigger level rounded down is a mistake. Not only are subclasses like the Arcane Trickster and the Eldritch Knight that get their spellcasting at level 3 considered third casters, and therefore the Architect of Ruin should also be a third caster, but also in the document there is a sidebar that talks about the development process of the Illrigger and how it was initially a half caster just as a base class. And so I think this is sort of an artifact from that, and that this is supposed to be third of your Illrigger levels rounded down and not a half, but that is what it says in the document and on D&D Beyond. So starting at level 1, they have the first feature called Forked Tongue. It says you can speak, read, and write Infernal. Additionally, you can speak 2 additional languages, but you can only speak them. You can't read or write them. And then you can switch one of those floating languages out after a long rest, provided that you know the name of the language. And then you magically forget the language that you previously knew. You gain an additional floating language this way at level 9, as well as advantage on wisdom insight checks to determine the intent or sincerity of creatures. Also at level 1, you get a feature called Baleful Interdict. This is sort of the core mechanic that the class is built around. So basically you have an interdict save DC, which is 8 plus your proficiency plus your charisma. This allows you to place a seal on a creature within 30 feet of you once per turn when you hit them with an attack, or to do it as a bonus action. The seal lasts for 1 minute or until you burn it or use it in some other way, and only you can see the seals that are placed on these creatures. You have a total number of seals as determined by the Illrigger class table. You start with 3 at level 1, 4 at level 3, 5 at level 7, 6 at level 13, and 7 at level 18. You regain all burn or expended seals at the end of a short or long rest. And if an interdicted creature, if a creature that has seals on them dies while they still have seals on them, you can use a bonus action to transfer the remaining seals to a new creature within 30 feet of that creature as a bonus action, but the duration doesn't refresh. And I've been talking about burning seals, so the concept of burning seals is when a creature that has seals on them, an interdicted creature, takes damage except that damage which is from a seal being burned. You can burn any number of seals on them to immediately add an additional d6 of fire or necrotic damage, your choice, per seal burned. So if I have 2 seals on a creature and they take damage from either me or one of my allies or some other way, I can action free say I want to burn 1 or 2 seals on them, and they'll take a d6 per seal burned. And then after that happens, the burned seals immediately vanish, and then you have to wait till the rest to get them back. This doesn't require any action when this happens, like I mentioned, but you cannot cause this to happen while you're incapacitated. And the damage of these seals being burned increases to 2d6 at level 5, 3d6 at level 11, and 4d6 at level 20. So it's sort of like I would hesitate to call them smites or more maybe like a sneak attack, but it's something that is more maybe team playable because you can trigger it on your allies' attacks and damage as well. And they're sort of mini smites, and they take some while to build up. If you want to kind of burst them all at once, you need to, because you can only place one per turn. So you kind of have to wait and get multiple on them if you want to have one big burst go off. But it is a pretty interesting mechanic, and there's a lot more stuff within the classes that interacts with these seals. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. Moving on to level 2, we have Combat Mastery, which is sort of like the replacement for fighting style, specifically for Illriggers. So at level 2, when you get this feature, you pick one and you're stuck with it. So you have Bravado. It gives you an unarmored defense of 10 plus Dexterity plus Charisma. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit. You have a Brutal style, which says when you hit a creature no more than one size larger than you, when you're wielding a weapon with 2 hands, you can push them 5 feet horizontally, and then you can use your movement to move into the space that they left, which you always could. I don't know why it says that. But then moving on to Inexorable, you get +1 to all saving throws for each hostile creature within 5 feet of you, up to +5 to your saving throws. There is Lies, where you can pick one type of weapon, and then you can use Charisma instead of Dexterity or Strength for attacks and damage rolls with that weapon. And then you can change what that weapon is on a long rest. So this is sort of making you the single attribute dependent class. If you wanted to be a fully Charisma-based class, this is the one that you would choose. Then we have Lissom, that says when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can move 5 feet without provoking opportunity attacks, provided that you have the movement to do so. I do wish this one maybe had a little more movement associated with it, because some things have reach. So even if you move 5 feet away from them, you're not out of their opportunity attack range. So I wish this was maybe like 15 feet or up to half your movement, or just basically be that part of the old mobile feature, something along those lines. Or you have Unfettered, that says when you place or burn a seal with Baleful Interdict, the range is 60 feet instead of 30 feet, as well as the Infernal Conduit feature that we'll see later has a range of 30 feet instead of touch. And then additionally, ranged attack rolls while within 5 feet of a hostile creature don't impose disadvantage. At level 2, you also get a feature called Interdiction. This is basically sort of like Eldritch Invocations for the Illrigger. All these interdictions are basically boons that interact with different ways to empower or use your seals in a different way. You start with 1 boon at level 2, you go up to 2 at level 7, 3 at level 13, and then 4 at level 18. And you can replace 1 boon with another for which you qualify whenever you gain a level in this class, much like you can do with the invocations for the Warlock. Then some of the boons are passive, which means that they are basically always active per the description of the boon. And then some of them say that they activate when a seal is burned or when a seal is expended. So we talked about what a burning seal is already. And then expending a seal is to use an unplaced seal, so a seal that you haven't used yet. Sort of like a Bardic Inspiration, how you just kind of use that to do something else. So some of them let you expend a seal that you haven't placed on someone yet to have an additional effect. And again, we'll take a look at that basically on the next slide as we start going through the boons. So starting with a baiting seal, it says when you or an ally within 30 feet takes damage, you can expend a seal as a reaction to reduce the damage by 1d10 plus half your Illrigger level rounded down. Then we have Bedevil that says when you burn a seal, you can activate this boon, no action required, to impose a penalty to the next saving throw that creature makes before the end of that creature's next turn, equal to your proficiency bonus. Soul Eater says when you burn a seal, you can choose to gain temporary hit points equal to your Illrigger level, no action required. Styx's Apathy says when you burn a seal, you can use your reaction to make it so that the creature can't take reactions until the end of their next turn. And then the final 2nd level interdict boon says Swift Retribution, which is a passive boon. It says when an interdicted creature provokes an opportunity attack from you, you can make that attack without using your reaction. Once you use this boon, you can't do so again until the start of your next turn. So you can't get multiple reactions this way per turn. And this only is active on creatures that are interdicted or that have seals placed on them. So you can't do it on a creature that doesn't have a seal currently placed on them. So whenever I say interdicted creature, it refers to a creature that has a seal placed on them. So of these options, I think Bedevil might be a little strong. The flat penalty equal to your proficiency bonus is pretty significant. And again, with as many seals as you have with them coming back on a short rest, I think that is maybe a little too powerful. I don't know how I'd fix this. I just think that it can cause more spells to succeed against enemies, which isn't necessarily it's fun for the players, but not as much fun for the DM. Soul Eater might also be a little strong. Temporary hit points equal to your level is just going to get better and better and better as you level up. And again, with seals coming back on a short rest, that can be a lot of extra hit points for your DM to try to chunk through. And then finally for Styx's Apathy, I think if we were trying to modernize this for the post 2024 world, that this would need to be changed to prevent opportunity attacks from being made and not specifically lockout reactions, because we're seeing a lot of legendary creatures have legendary reactions and not legendary actions anymore. So this would be a feature that would be able to lock them out of those legendary reactions, much like the way that Shocking Grasp was changed in 2024. Moving on to the level 7 interdict boons, we have Acheron's Chain. It says when you place a seal on a large or smaller creature using a bonus action, you can impose a saving throw against your interdict save DC. On a failure, they're grappled until the end of your next turn, or you can pull them 10 feet towards you, your choice. You have Conflagrant Channel. You expend a seal as a bonus action to teleport 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Eyes of the Gate is kind of a paragraph here, but it's effectively very similar to the Warlock's Gaze of Two Minds, except you can put it on an unwilling creature. And then when you're looking through them, as long as they're within 300 feet of you, you can place seals on creatures that they can see. Once you do that, they become aware that they are affected that way, and they can continue to make saving throws against it to try to remove that effect from them. Then there's Shadow Shroud. It says expend a seal as a bonus action to grant yourself or a creature you can touch +2 armor class for 1 minute. So very similar to a Shield of Faith without concentration. There is Unleash Hell. Says when you burn one or more seals on a creature, you can use your reaction to cause each creature of your choice within 5 feet of that creature to make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes the full damage of the burned seals as well, or half as much on a success. And then finally, there's Vengeful Shot. When a creature makes a ranged attack against you or an ally you can see within 30 feet of you, you can expend a seal as a reaction to make a ranged weapon attack against the attacker. The attack deals extra damage equal to half your Illrigger level rounded down. So nothing too crazy on this one. I think these are all pretty fair. So let's go ahead and move on to the level 13 interdict boons. We start with Dis's Onslaught, which is a passive. You make one weapon attack as part of the same bonus action you make to place or move a seal. So if you choose to place a seal as a bonus action, you can also just make a weapon attack against them. This doesn't specifically say melee weapon, so you can do this with a ranged weapon, which is pretty cool because it's rare for ranged weapons, especially the bigger ones, to have a bonus action attack. Flash of Brimstone says when you place or move a seal, you can activate this boon to magically teleport to a space within 5 feet of the target. Hellish Frenzy says when you start your turn within 30 feet of an interdicted creature, you can expend a seal to double your movement speed, gain +2 AC, and make an additional weapon attack when you take the attack action, and this effect lasts until the start of your next turn. So basically, if you're within 30 feet of an interdicted creature, you can use this feature, no action required, to basically give yourself haste for 1 round. Then there's Hellsight that says you can expend a seal as an action to gain True Sight out to 60 feet for 1 hour. Impaling Shot says when you hit an interdicted creature with a weapon attack, you can use a bonus action to expend a seal. That creature has a penalty to their armor class equal to your proficiency bonus until the end of your next turn. You have Iron Gowl. It says use an action to expend 4 seals to touch a creature and impose a charisma saving throw. You send them to hell on a failure. If the creature is native to hell or CR4 or lower, they remain there until they find their own way out. Otherwise, they remain for 1 minute, and the target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the effect on a success. So basically sort of a banishment. And then there's also Last Word. It says you expend up to 3 seals when you drop to 0 hit points. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet makes a dexterity saving throw or takes 3d6 fire damage per seal expended, or half as much on a success. And then you regain hit points equal to the total damage rolled. At least 1 creature takes damage. Lastly, you have Soul's Doom. It says when you place or move a seal as a bonus action, you can cause the interdicted creature to take extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus whenever they take damage for 1 minute. So when I move or place a seal on a creature as a bonus action, I can cause them to take extra damage equal to my proficiency bonus every time they're hit for 1 minute. Of these options, I think Impaling Shot might be too good. A penalty to the armor class equal to your proficiency bonus. A flat penalty is a lot for a whole round. At this level, your proficiency is +5, so that's basically a 25% increased chance to hit, up to 30 once you get to level 17. That is very, very significant. That might be a little too good. And then likewise, Soul's Doom, again, adding damage equal to your proficiency bonus to every piece of damage that creature takes for the next minute is a lot of extra damage. So I would think that this would either need to be only limited to the damage you deal, or if it's going to be open to everyone, it might be just be like 1d4 or something like that. Moving on to level 3 features, we have the Diabolic Contract. This is when you choose your Illrigger subclass as you're welcomed into the Order of Desolation. The subclass you choose determines your Archdevil patron. For the Architect of Ruin, you have Asmodeus. The Hellspeaker has Moloch. Painkiller has Despater. The Sanguine Knight has Sutek. And the Shadowmaster has Belial or Belial. I know in Diablo they call him Belial, but I think the more common pronunciation is Belial. And then, of course, then you get additional subclass features at level 7, 11, and 15. And then also at level 3, you have a feature called Invoke Hell. Each subclass has different options for Invoke Hell. This is similar to like Channel Divinity for the Clerics and the Paladins, but it's called Invoke Hell for the Illrigger. Level 4, you get your ability score increase or a feat, and then you gain additional ones at 8, 12, 16, and 19. So you don't get any extra like a fighter, or I think a rogue gets at least one extra as well. So they just follow the normal progression. Level 5 gets you extra attack. Level 6 has a feature called Infernal Conduit. So you start with a pool of Infernal Conduit dice as listed in the Illrigger class table. You get 3 at level 6, 4 at level 7, and then you get an additional one every other level up to 10 at level 19. You regain all expended Infernal Conduit dice when you finish a long rest. You can expend 1 or more dice as an action to touch a creature, and the creature makes a Constitution saving throw against your interdict save DC. A creature can willingly fail this save if they wanted to, and then you roll the spent dice and you're going to choose one of the following effects when that happens. So the first one is Invigorate. So on a failed save, the creature regains a number of hit points equal to the rolled total, or half as much on a success, and then you take necrotic damage equal to that total. The necrotic damage can't be reduced in any way. If the damage reduces you to 0 hit points, you are unconscious but stable. And then the second option is called Devour. On a failed save, the target takes necrotic damage equal to the total, or half as much on a success, and then you regain that many hit points. And then also, kind of surprisingly, much like the first one, the necrotic damage can't be reduced in any way. So if they have resistance or whatever, they can't reduce it. Or if they have like a shield, they can't reduce it. And then once you reach level 11 in this class, you can also impose 1 level of exhaustion when they fail the Devour feature. And then a creature can't receive more than 3 levels of exhaustion from this feature. Moving on to level 10, we have a feature called Blood Price. It says when you fail a saving throw, you can expend a hit die, roll it, and add that result to a saving throw, potentially turning the failure into a success. I'm a little torn on this one because that seems pretty significant. A D10 is a pretty big bonus to be adding to your saving throws. It does cost your hit die, so there is a cost associated with it, like you're getting more power now for having less recovery later. However, because this is specifically tied to a saving throw, if you succeed that saving throw, you're probably taking less damage or avoiding damage completely anyway. So you're already kind of recovering your hit points in that way. So it's like you're kind of already getting the benefit now. I would probably need to actually play with it to kind of figure out how I feel. But also just the fact that you can do this starting at level 10 up to 10 times per day if you wanted to. Yeah, seems like quite a bit. So I just feel like there needs to be some limit on how many times you can do this per day. Like once per short rest would probably be fine as well. At level 11, we have Terrorizing Force. It says you choose a damage type when you gain this feature: cold, fire, necrotic, or poison. Your weapon attacks deal 1d8 additional damage of the chosen type. This is all attacks. It's not once per turn or anything like that, so that's pretty cool. And then you can change this type to one of the other types whenever you finish a long rest. I think it's a little strange that this feature comes on so late. Usually we see the more damage increasing options earlier in class design. But it is a d8 on every attack, which is pretty powerful, and we don't see that often, especially with base class features. Usually it's either like once per turn or even once per turn only on your turn, but this is just every attack. Pretty cool feature. It comes on pretty late, but let's go ahead and move on. At level 14, we have Superior Interdict. It says the damage from your seals ignores resistance. And in addition, if you have no seals remaining, you can use a bonus action to regain a seal, but you can only do this once per long rest. At level 17, you get a feature called Infernal Majesty. This seems very similar to the Paladin subclass Capstones, where you can use a bonus action, you gain a bunch of benefits for 10 minutes. You gain resistance to fire, cold, and necrotic damage. Wings appear on your back, and you gain a flight speed of 60 feet. When you use the Blood Price feature, you can deal damage to an enemy within 60 feet equal to the amount you rolled, which was the feature that allows you to expend your hit die to a failed save. And then the extra weapon damage from Terrorizing Force, which is the thing that adds a d8 to all of your attacks, increases to 2d8 for the duration. Additionally, if you die during this duration, you can choose to have your body burn away, leaving only your equipment. Your body reforms 1d6 days later in hell. At the end of this time, your body returns to life and you regain all hit points. You can only use this feature once per long rest. And then finally, at level 20, you have a feature called Master of Hell. Once per long rest, you can use an action to summon a Hellstorm within 150 feet. It has a 50-foot radius, and you can choose one of the following effects. You can either choose Inferno. Each enemy in the area makes a dexterity saving throw, and on a failure, they take 5d10 fire and 5d10 necrotic damage and burn for 1 minute. Or they take half as much on a success and they don't burn. A burning creature must repeat the saving throw on their turns or take 1d10 fire and 1d10 necrotic damage, or end the effect on itself on a success. And then this hellfire can't be extinguished by non-magical means. You can also choose Pestilence, which means every enemy in the area must succeed a Constitution saving throw, or take 5d10 poison and 5d10 necrotic damage and become poisoned for 1 minute, or half as much on a successful save and they aren't poisoned. And then the final one is Darkness. Each enemy in the area must succeed on a Constitution saving throw, or take 10d10 cold damage on a failed save, or half as much on a success. And then the storm persists for 1 minute, and enemies in the area are blinded for the duration or until they leave that area. So that is all the Illrigger class features. Let's go ahead and move into the subclasses, starting with the Architect of Ruin. The Architect of Ruin at level 3 starts with Asmodeus' Blessing. You gain proficiency in one of the following skills, either Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion. You can read and write the languages granted by your forked tongue feature instead of just speaking them. You also gain the spellcasting feature. Your spellcasting ability modifier is Charisma, of course. The Illrigger has their own class spell list specifically for this subclass, which is kind of unique. It knows a certain number of spells as listed in the subclass table. These are known spells, not prepared spells. And then you can replace one spell known with another for which they qualify when you gain a level in this class. And then your spellcasting focus is specifically an unholy symbol, whatever you might choose that to be. Additionally, at level 3, you also have the Invoke Hell options. So for the Architect of Ruin, you have Enervating Spell. It says when you deal damage with an Illrigger spell of first level or higher, you can expend a seal to make that creature vulnerable to that damage. If the target normally has resistance or immunity to that damage, that resistance or immunity is suppressed, and they are treated as vulnerable regardless. Or you have Spellblade. You can use an action to make a melee weapon attack and cast an Illrigger spell you know that has a casting time of 1 action. Moving on to the Architect of Ruin spell list. For cantrips, they have Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Hellfire, Message, Minor Illusion, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, Thaumaturgy, Vengeful Blade, and Vicious Mockery. So anything that's bolded and asterisked here is a Illrigger specific spell. For first level spells, they have Bane, Burning Hands, Charm Person, Color Spray, Command, Detect Magic, Disguise Self, Hell's Lash, Hellish Rebuke, Shield, Shield of Faith, and Silent Image. At second level, they have Arcanist's Magic Aura, Augury, Blur, Darkness, Detect Thoughts, Enthrall, Heat Metal, Hold Person, Infernal Challenge, Invisibility, Lesser Restoration, Mirror Image, Ray of Enfeeblement, Scorching Ray, Silence, and Suggestion. At third level, they have Bestow Curse, Dispel Magic, Fear, Fly, Haste, Major Image, Mote of Hell, Phantom Steed, Remove Curse, Revivify, and Slow. And then at fourth level, they have Aura of Desecration, Banishment, Blight, Compulsion, Death Ward, Dimension Door, Dominate Beast, Greater Invisibility, Hallucinatory Terrain, Locate Creature, Maligned Weapon, Phantasmal Killer, and Wall of Death. I forgot to bold Wall of Death there, but that is an Illrigger specific spell as well. Then moving on to the Illrigger specific spells, we're starting with Hellfire as a cantrip. This is a charisma save to deal 1d4 fire and 1d4 necrotic damage. The damage increases by 1d4 each at higher levels of the cantrip. Vengeful Blade is basically a cantrip similar to Booming Blade, although the damage is necrotic and the extra damage triggers if the affected target attacks or casts a spell. Hell's Lash is a first level spell that has a Constitution save, or the target takes 4d4 fire damage, and then will take an additional 2d4 fire damage on their turn if they fail the saving throw. And then the damage increases by 2d4 for the initial attack and 1d4 for the repeated damage per spell level higher than 1. Infernal Challenge says if you have no allies within 5 feet of you, you can use a bonus action to compel a creature to fight you if they fail a charisma saving throw. If they fail, you gain +2 armor class, and the target has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than you. If the target tries to move away from you, they must succeed on a charisma saving throw, or their speed will be reduced to 0. And then the spell ends early if you end your turn more than 30 feet away from the target. Mote of Hell is a third level spell, which is basically a slightly smaller Hunger of Hadar that does slightly more damage. At fourth level spells, we have the Aura of Desecration. It's basically a 30-foot emanation where when creatures of your choice enter the area or start their turn there, they make a Constitution saving throw or take 46 necrotic damage, and they can't regain hit points until the start of their next turn, or they take half as much on a success. Wall of Death is basically similar to Wall of Fire. It's slightly less damage, it's necrotic damage, and it's also a Constitution saving throw. And then you can also use a reaction whenever a creature takes damage to gain temporary hit points equal to the damage dealt. And then finally, for the level 4 spells, you have Maligned Weapon. which is a bonus action to imbue a weapon that you can touch for 1 hour. The weapon extinguishes mundane light around you within a 30-foot radius. Attacks with the weapon deal an extra 2d6 necrotic damage, and the weapon is considered magical for the duration. Additionally, while the spell is ongoing, you can use a bonus action to end it early, causing creatures of your choice within 30 feet to make a wisdom saving throw, or take 46 necrotic damage and become frightened, or half as much on a success and then they aren't frightened. And then frightened creatures can repeat the save on their turn, ending the effect on a success. Moving on to level 7 for the Architect of Ruin, we have Asmodeus' Interdictions. These are bonus interdiction boons that you always have prepared, and they don't account against the number of interdiction boons that you know. Asmodeus has Axiomatic Seals at 7th level, which is a passive. It says when you burn 1 or more seals, you can add your Charisma modifier to each seal's damage roll. Then at 13th level, you get Spellbreaker. When an interdicted creature within 60 feet casts a spell, you can use your reaction to burn 1 or more seals on them. Burning seals this way does no damage, but instead casts Counterspell on them. And then the Counterspell level is increased by 1 for each seal burned beyond the first. So the first, if you burn 1 seal on them, it's a level 3 Counterspell. If you burn 2 seals on them, it's a level 4 Counterspell, and so forth. Then finally, at level 18, you have a passive called Hellmage. When you or an ally succeed on a saving throw against a spell or a magical effect from an enemy, you can place 1 or more seals on that enemy up to a number equal to your proficiency bonus. At level 11 for the Architect of Ruin, we have a feature called Submit. It says when you cast an Illrigger spell you know that targets or includes an interdicted creature, you can burn 2 of those seals to impose disadvantage on their saving throw against the spell. And then finally at level 15, we have Vile Transmogrification. So you can either regain seals, where you can expend a spell slot to regain a number of seals equal to that slot's level as a bonus action, or you can regain spell slots by expending any number of seals to regain the spell slot equal to 1/3 that number as a bonus action. For example, spending 6 seals to return a 2nd level spell slot, and you can use each of these benefits only once per long rest. Moving on to the second subclass, we have the Hellspeaker. So in the PDF, they do include a content warning. So I will include that here as well, that this subclass includes themes of mental manipulation and mind control. So you might want to get clearance from your other players at the table if they're comfortable with those sort of things. So, and then even if they are comfortable with it, initially, if they throw up a red flag during play, to just be mindful to your friend's sensitivities and kind of make adjustments as you go. Starting at level 3, we have Moloch's Blessing. You gain proficiency in your choice of Persuasion or Deception. If you are already proficient in the chosen skill, you gain expertise in it instead. You also gain an additional floating language for the Forked Tongue feature, and have advantage on charisma checks to influence creatures who can hear and understand when you speak one of those languages. Additionally, you have Charm Enemy. It says when you place a seal on a humanoid using your bonus action, so you specifically need to use your bonus action to place the seal, and they specifically need to be humanoid, which is a specific monster type. You can charm them if they fail a charisma saving throw for 1 minute, or until your companions do anything harmful to them. The creature regards you as a friendly acquaintance, but when the charm ends, they know they were charmed by you. Additionally, you can burn 1 or more seals against humanoids within 30 feet when you use this bonus action to attempt to charm them as well against the same charisma saving throw. So notably, this is kind of interesting because it does say you burn the seals, and it doesn't say that you ignore the damage for doing so, unlike one of the other features that we saw. So you do damage to them, but then they become charmed if they fail the charisma saving throw. So I don't know if this is like when you're trying to maybe negotiate during combat or something like that. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to do here, but it's still an interesting feature. And then you can do this a number of times equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of once, regaining all uses after a long rest. And then of course at level 3, like the other subclass, we get 2 Invoke Hell options. The Hellspeaker has the Honey Sweet Blades. It says when you make a weapon attack against an interdicted creature, you have advantage on the attack, and if that attack hits, it becomes a critical hit. It's unclear if this is supposed to be the next attack or the first attack that hits. I think they should make that a little more clear. And then the second option is Turncoat. You can use an action to target a number of creatures equal to your proficiency bonus within 60 feet who can hear you. They must succeed a charisma saving throw or use the reaction to make a weapon attack against another creature of your choice. An affected creature can't attack themselves. At level 7, we have Moloch's Interdiction. So again, these are the bonus boons that you get for being in this subclass. At level 7, you get Red Cant. You can expend a seal when you make a charisma check to treat a roll of 9 or lower on the d20 as a 10. You have Slippery Ploy at level 13. When a creature targets you with an attack or spell or other magical effect, you can use your reaction to place a seal on them, and they must succeed a charisma saving throw or choose a new target. If no target is available, the attack or a spell or effect is lost. And then at level 18, you have Incontrovertible. This is a passive feature that says interdicted creatures have disadvantage on Wisdom and Charisma saving throws. Pretty powerful. It is 18th level, so maybe it should be, because this not only affects your spells, but all other spells or other effects that your teammates have as well. At level 11, we have a feature called Intransigent. It says you and creatures of your choice within 10 feet are immune to the charmed condition while you're conscious. And you have an additional feature called Let's Make a Deal. This allows you to make a deal with one willing ally of your choice who can hear you within 60 feet as a bonus action. Once within the next 10 minutes, they can choose to gain advantage and a bonus equal to your proficiency bonus to one attack roll or saving throw. If the roll succeeds, the ally then gains temporary hit points equal to your Illrigger level. And then if the roll fails, they have disadvantage on the next attack roll or saving throw they make, and this disadvantage can't be canceled out in any way. So this is a pretty unique feature in the sense that it can actually punish your allies in this way. And then finally, for level 15, for the subclass Capstone, we have Quid Pro Quo. It says, as an action, you target a creature within 30 feet of you that you can see. They must succeed a Charisma saving throw or be banished to hell for 1 minute, or be immune to the effects of Quid Pro Quo for 24 hours on a success. A banished creature repeats the saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the effect on a success. A creature returns to the nearest unoccupied space where it left. While the creature is banished, a Devil Jurist, which is from the Flea Mortals from MCDM, or a Horned Devil from the D&D Monster Manual, appears in their place. The Devil is an ally to you and follows your commands. It disappears when the banished creature returns. And then once a creature is successfully banished in this way, you must wait until you finish a long rest to use this feature again. Moving on to the third subclass, we have the Painkiller. At level 3, the Painkiller starts with Despater's Blessing. You gain proficiency with heavy armor. It also has a feature called Devastator. It says once per short or long rest, you use an action to make a weapon attack and choose a number of willing creatures up to your proficiency bonus within 30 feet who can see you. The chosen creatures can use a reaction to make one weapon attack or cast a damage-dealing cantrip with a casting time of 1 action. And then you also have your Invoke Hell options. The Painkiller has Grand Strategist. You can choose one or more creatures up to your proficiency bonus within 60 feet who can hear you. This doesn't require any action from you. The chosen creatures can immediately move up to half their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. Or you have Punishment. When you are damaged by an attack, you can use a reaction to force the attacker to make a Wisdom saving throw, or they take necrotic damage equal to the damage dealt by the attack, or half as much on a successful save. At level 7, you get your subclass-specific Interdict boons. The Painkiller gets a Telekinetic Seal at level 7. Use a reaction to place a seal on a creature that you can see that moves within 5 feet of you. The creature must also succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or be pushed back 15 feet or knocked prone, your choice. At level 13, you have By the Throat. It says when you use a bonus action to place or move a seal on a creature no more than one size larger than you, they must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or be restrained until the end of their next turn. And then at level 18, you have a passive called Despater's Supremacy. Attacks against interdicted creatures are a critical hit on a roll of 18 to 20. At level 11, you get a feature called You Die by My Command. When an ally within 30 feet who can hear you drops to 0 hit points without being killed outright, you can use a reaction to cause them to drop to 1 hit point instead, and then you can use this reaction once per short or long rest. And then finally at level 15, you have Death Strike as their capstone. When you hit an interdicted creature with a melee weapon attack, you can use this reaction to burn 1 seal on them and turn it into a critical hit. You also double the damage dice you roll for the burned seal, and you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. Moving on to the next subclass, we have the Sanguine Knight. This one also comes with a content warning, so this subclass has themes of manipulating other creatures' blood, so make sure that your other players at the table are comfortable with this sort of thing, and again, even if they're comfortable with it at the beginning of the game, during your session 0 or whatever it may be, if they throw up a red flag during play, just make sure that you kind of adjust accordingly. The Sanguine Knight at level 3 gets Sutek's Blessing. You gain proficiency in religion. You can also use an action to sense creatures with blood within 120 feet of you without having to see them. The sense is blocked by 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, or 3 feet of wood or dirt. You know the distance and direction to each creature and the creature type, and you can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. You also get a feature called Exsanguinate. When you burn a seal on a creature that isn't a construct or undead, you can choose an ally within 30 feet of you that you can see, and that ally gains temporary hit points equal to the damage dealt by the seals burned on that interdicted creature. And then you also get your Invoke Hell options. You have Embolden Allies. Use a bonus action to restore hit points equal to 5 times your Illrigger level. divided however you choose between yourself and other creatures within 30 feet of you. You also get Vitalized, where each creature of your choice within 30 feet gains a bonus to ability checks equal to your proficiency bonus for 1 minute. At level 7, you get your Sanguine Knight specific interdict boons. So at 7th level, you get Foul Interchange. You can use an action to expend a seal and afflict a creature with one of the following conditions, being blinded, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or poisoned. And then you can also target another creature within 60 feet who must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be afflicted by the same condition until the end of your next turn. If the second creature is immune to the condition is also removed from the original creature as well. At level 13, they get Sanguine Gift. When a creature within 30 feet of you that you can see regains hit points, you can expend a seal to have that creature regain additional hit points equal to your Illrigger level. And then at level 18, you have a passive called Blood for Blood. It says whenever an ally takes damage from an interdicted creature, that creature also takes necrotic damage equal to your proficiency bonus. At level 11, we have a feature called Bloodstroke. It says when an ally who has temporary hit points from your Exsanguinate feature is hit by a melee attack, the attacker takes cold, fire, or necrotic damage, your choice, equal to your Illrigger level. The level 15 capstone for the Sanguinite is called Hemal Exchange. You can use a reaction to expend a seal and force an interdicted creature within 60 feet of you to take a 1d8 penalty when they are making an attack roll or a saving throw. So when they make an attack roll, you use your reaction to do this thing. And then additionally, you can choose an ally within 30 feet of you. The next time they make an attack roll or saving throw, they can roll 1d8 and add that number to the total. So this is very similar to Silvery Bars, but instead of advantage and disadvantage, it's a d8 plus and minus. Moving on to the final subclass for the Illrigger, we have the Shadowmaster. Level 3, the Shadowmaster has Marked for Death, so you have advantage on the first attack against an interdicted creature on your turn. You also have a feature called Strike from the Dark. It says once per turn, when you hit an interdicted creature with a melee weapon attack that had advantage, you can roll a number of d4s equal to your proficiency bonus and deal extra damage equal to the total, and you roll an additional 1d4 if the target is in dim light or darkness. And then of course at level 3 as well, you have your Invoke Hell options. The Shadowmaster has Master of Disguise, where it says you can cast Disguise Self as an action without expending a spell slot. Then you also have No Escape, where you entrap a creature you can see within 30 feet of you as a bonus action. The creature must succeed a Charisma saving throw or have their speed halved and be unable to willingly move more than 30 feet away from you. If the creature is in dim light or darkness, the saving throw is made at disadvantage, and the effect ends if you're incapacitated or die, or if the target is more than 30 feet away from you. And strangely, the Shadowmaster is the only subclass here that doesn't have the Patron's Blessing feature at level 3, so I don't know why that would be, but just something I noticed. At level 7, we have Belial's Interdiction, so these are their bonus boons for this subclass. At level 7, you have Veil of Lies. As a bonus action, you can expend a seal and become invisible for 10 minutes until you attack or cast a spell. So notably, this does just say attack or cast a spell, so you can still place seals as a bonus action on your turn. You can still trigger the burning of seals when creatures take damage. You have Hell's Assassin at level 13, which is a passive. It says whenever you roll a 1 or 2 on either seal damage or weapon damage against an interdicted creature, you can re-roll that die and use the new roll. Then at level 18, you have a final passive called Dark Malediction. Interdicted creatures emanate darkness in a 10-foot radius. Non-magical sources of light can't illuminate this darkness, but creatures with dark vision can see through it. Light created by magic or psionics illuminates the darkness where it overlaps. There is a sort of a sidebar here that it says that the stated purpose of Dark Malediction is to allow the Shadowmaster to use their features that rely on dim light or darkness more easily. It isn't necessarily to blind the creature, although if the creature doesn't have dark vision or some other form of sight that would allow them to see through this magical darkness, then they would technically be blind anyway. Moving on to level 11, we have Umbral Killer. You gain the following benefits. You gain dark vision out to 60 feet, or if you already have dark vision, that increases by an additional 60 feet. Your movement increases by 10 feet, and then you also have advantage on dexterity stealth checks made to hide, as well as you have the benefits of evasion. And then finally, at level 15 for the capstone for the Shadowmaster, you have Doomed to the Shadows. It says the extra damage of your strike from the dark increases to d8s from d4s. You also deal 2d8 extra damage if the target is in dim light or darkness, up from 1d4. And then when you deal damage with a strike from the dark, you can use your reaction to burn a seal on the creature and cause them to be blinded for 1 minute instead of dealing the seal's damage. I think this is pretty cool, although I think that last part where there's no additional saving throw against that blindness is maybe a little too strong. I don't mind it being triggered on hit or when you burn that seal initially, but the target should have additional saving throws, maybe either at the end of their turn or at the beginning of your turn, something like that. So all the class and subclasses being aside, we're going to look at the Illrigger specific magic items. The first one here is something called True Name. This is a weapon that can be any weapon. It has a variable rarity. At uncommon, you just have an additional effect where if you roll an 18 or 19 or 20 on the d20, you can place an additional seal if you place a seal as part of that attack normally. When you increase the rarity to rare, it is a +1 weapon, and when you burn a seal, they deal an extra 1d6 damage. At very rare, it is a +2 weapon, and when you burn a seal, they deal 2d6 extra damage. And then additionally, when you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, you can regain a seal, but you can't regain the seal this way again until the following dusk. And then at legendary, it is a +3 weapon. Burning seals now deals 3d6 extra damage. And when you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, you can regain 2 seals and gain temporary hit points equal to your Illrigger level. And then much like the other one, you can't gain the seals or gain the temporary hit points this way again until the next dusk. So this is a pretty cool item, pretty flavorful, works a lot with the class mechanics. I don't think anything is too crazy about it. I don't know, extra seal damage will count for a lot. That might be a bit much, but again, I'd have to play it to actually figure it out. And then there's also a potion called Bloodsbane. This isn't so much a potion as it is a weapon oil. It is very rare. It is a weapon oil that can either come pre-mixed or unmixed. Certain ingredients can be mixed into it as part of a short or long rest for additional effects. You can coat a slashing weapon or up to 5 pieces of ammunition. Applying the oil takes 1 minute and requires a drop of blood from a willing creature to activate its magic. A creature hit by the weapon or ammunition covered in this oil must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or suffer an effect as depended on the ingredient added. And then specifically, if the blood in the oil came from an Illrigger and that creature fails the saving throw, they also have a seal placed on them as part of that effect. And this seal doesn't count against the number of seals from the Illrigger. So the different ingredients you can add are Mentha Arvensis oil. So if you add this to the Bloodsbane oil, the target is under the effects of Zone of Truth for 10 minutes if they fail to save. If you use Nightshade oil, the target becomes paralyzed for 1 minute. And then for Bloodhound Fur, the creature who offered their blood to the oil knows the direction and distance to the target for 24 hours if they fail that Constitution save. And then finally, for Rose oil, the target is under the effects of Charm Person for 1 hour, and they are charmed specifically by the person who offered their blood to the oil. I mean, this seems pretty cool, pretty harmless. The only thing that might be broken here is the Nightshade oil, where it's paralyzed for 1 minute. You do have the initial save against it, but there's no following saves against that at all, which, I mean, that'll end the combat right there if it goes off. And that is everything that is in the revised Illrigger from MCDM, or basically everything. I didn't cover the retainers, but that is the class, all 5 subclasses, the spells that were added, as well as the Illrigger specific items. I do want to kind of go back over it and talk about things that maybe I would fix if I were doing like a version 2 of this. So things that might need to be fixed for the base class: they should prepare spells like a third caster when multi-classing if you're the Architect of Ruin subclass. And again, I think this was what they intended to do. I think they just missed that wording in the document, because they did call it out in a sidebar that it is supposed to be a third caster. I also think that considering charisma as a primary stat, it's unorthodox, but it's technically harmless. But if I wanted to make it feel like it's actually more important to the class, I might change most of the things that scale with proficiency bonus to scale with charisma instead. So it feels like an actual integral part of the class. There was that one sort of fighting style where it's sort of like the Hexblade, where you use your charisma for attacks instead of dexterity or strength. If you're not doing that, then charisma isn't really a huge part of the way that the class works. I think the Infernal Conduit feature felt like a bit much. This was the level 6 feature, I believe. This feels like they're just kind of giving them a lot of extra resources for no reason. Additionally, the Infernal Majesty and Master of Hell both feel like capstones. This was the level 17 and level 20 features respectively. It's unusual for classes, if you look at the other base classes for 5th edition, the official classes at least, getting 2 big features that late in the game is very unusual. So I think like you should have one of these and not the other. And then maybe, replace the level 17 feature with maybe an improved version of an earlier feature, something like that. Between Infernal Conduit, Infernal Majesty, and Master of Hell, Illrigger just feels like a very feature-flooded class. I think this is just sort of a habit or a trap that a lot of sort of third-party / homebrew classes fall into, where they just give the classes a lot of all these different features and different things that you need to track and this and that, whereas the actual 5e classes themselves are usually pretty streamlined. They'll usually pick one feature and kind of build on that, or introduce another feature and build on that throughout the class as well. Obviously, the most infamous version of this right now is the Hunter with their Hunter's Mark bonuses, but also the Brutal Strike feature for the Barbarian, or the things that buff the Second Wind for the Fighter as well, as a good example. So I'd like to see something like that in place of the Infernal Conduit and Infernal Majesty or Master of Hell. I think they should pick one of those 17th level and 20th level features and make that the capstone, and then replace the other with, you know, something else. Just to remove all the extra clutter and bloat in the class. For the Architect of Ruin specifically, I think Enervating spell giving vulnerability to a spell once per short rest might be busted. It might not be, but that's basically like getting a critical hit once per short rest, which is again the level 20 rogue capstone in 2024. So this might be balanced by the fact that the Illriggers don't have any burst spells outside of Blight once they get level 4 spells. So it might be okay, but it's just something that you might want to keep an eye on. I think the Vengeful Blade cantrip, the bonus damage from that is maybe a little too reliable. You know, Booming Blade requires the target to move or use their movement to trigger the extra damage, which isn't something that you can necessarily make happen every turn, as well as the Green Flame Blade bonus damage requires, you know, another target to be within 5 feet of that target. And then True Strike, the new True Strike, doesn't even do additional damage right away, and then the additional damage it does do is only a d6 as opposed to the d8s from Booming Blade. So the fact that Vengeful Blade triggers when an enemy casts a spell or attacks, those are the two most common actions, might make it too reliable for that style of cantrip. The Hell's Lash first level spell, it does damage twice before the creature gets to save twice, which kind of breaks the rules of 5th edition spells, because how it works is that they take the initial damage, and then at the beginning of their turn, they take more damage, and then at the end of their turn, they can save against it. The way that 5th edition spells are usually designed is that they will deal damage, and then they, on their turn, will make a save, and then if they fail that save, then they take extra damage, and it keeps going in circles like that. So I would probably just adjust that a little bit. Axiomatic Seals, this is the interdict boon for the subclass that allows you to add your charisma modifier to each roll of the seal damage that you burn, regardless of how many that you burn. So if you burn 3 seals at once on a target, they take 3d6 plus your charisma modifier times 3, which is quite a lot of damage. I know it takes a long time to maybe get those seals on a target, but I think that's still a lot of burst to happen at one time. So you might want to make that, you add your charisma modifier to the damage only once, regardless of how many seals that you burn. This would make it so that if you want to do more damage, you want to burn seals one at a time as your party deals more damage to that target. Or if you just feel like you need a big burst, then you burn more seals, but you only add your charisma modifier once. I think that might be slightly better design there. Then the Vile Transmogrification Capstone, I think they could probably buff that one. This is the one that either allowed you to burn spell slots to regain seals, or allowed you to spend seals to regain a spell slot, but you can only use each of them once per long rest. And because you can only get as high as the 2nd level spell slot, I don't think there's so much of a reason to limit this in a way. And I don't know if this was, unlimited at first, maybe they nerfed it down, or if this is the way that it always was. I don't think it needs that hard of a limit on it. Or maybe you can do it like a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. So if you have a +5 charisma, maybe you regain seals 3 times, and then you regain spell slots 2 times and mix it up that way. Maybe that's something that's a little better. Once per long rest just feels like too restrictive to me. For the Hellspeaker, the unlimited advantage on charisma checks against creatures who can understand your forked tongue languages might be too good. That's basically like permanently being charmed. I might require them to be interdicted. I would need to have placed a seal on them to get that benefit, so that I'm expending some resource to have this basically charm effect on this creature, rather than it just being free for me happening to share a floating language that I can choose to have at the end of a long rest. And then Honey Sweet Blades, again, guaranteeing the critical hit once per short rest is probably too strong. And I think the wording is a little vague as to kind of when it happens. So I think those would probably need to be nerfed or changed in some way. For the Painkiller, much like the Hellspeaker, the guaranteed crits on the capstone is about as good as the rogue class capstone, so probably needs to be toned down a little bit in some way. And then for the Sanguine Knight, the Sanguine Gift Boon might be a little too strong. This is the feature that allows you to expend a seal to add your Illrigger level to any healing that your allies or yourself receives. And that is just a lot of healing to receive throughout the course of day. You get a lot of seals per day with them coming back on a short rest. If you don't get as many short rests, and maybe you don't get as many, but still, that is a lot of extra healing that your DM is going to have to kind of chew through in order to actually challenge you as a party. And then I can say the same about Bloodstroke. The extra damage equal to your Illrigger level is quite a lot of damage for basically no cost, because you already spent the seal to use your Exsanguinate feature. So they just take this extra damage, and if for some reason those temporary hit points haven't gone away, then when something deals damage to them again, then they're going to take even more damage, and it's equal to your level. So that is, that can be quite a lot of damage as you continue to level in Illrigger. Moving on to Shadowmaster, the Doomed to the Shadows, as I said, probably needs a repeated save on that blinded condition. And then for the item specifically, the Nightshade Oil, like I mentioned, probably needs to have repeated saves against that paralyzed condition. The Bloodsbane also lacks a duration as to how long it lasts once it's applied to the weapon or ammunition. Usually like poisons will say that they're potent for 1 hour or 1 minute or 10 minutes or something like that. It's also unclear if it's only supposed to be effective for one hit, like poison usually is, or if it's supposed to last longer. So if it lasts longer, then you can continuously try to apply these different effects to either the same creature or multiple creatures. So I would like to see more language around that because it's very, very unclear. However, moving on to the things that I like, I think this is maybe one of the most well-constructed homebrew / third-party classes, especially from the big names in the community. Like we've seen the Blood Hunter from Critical Role, of course, and I think the base class is mostly fine, but I think the subclasses are kind of, most of them leave me wanting in some way. I also like that the Illrigger mixes fire and necrotic damage. I think that's very thematic, and I think this is just kind of a very unused design space in 5th edition to mix more damage from spells and kind of build more varieties of damage that way, and have more variance in spells that way, and have different themes for classes. Usually the most that a class or subclass will do is be able to choose different kinds of damage, but there are very few spells that mix different kinds of damage to really push a different theme. And what I think is maybe the most impressive for the Illrigger is that all of the subclasses, not only do they support a fundamentally different style of play, where the Architect of Ruin is your Gish, the Hellspeaker is your Negotiator, because they have a lot of charm effects and high persuasion or deception rolls. Your Painkiller is going to be your support / bruiser. The Sanguine Knight packs a lot of party healing and temporary hit points. And the Shadowmaster is basically a rogue with extra steps. And not only do they have all these different subclasses that support these different kinds of play, but every subclass kind of slaps. Whereas, again, like I said with the Blood Hunter, their subclasses are very hit or miss. There's maybe 1.5 that are decent, and then their other ones are maybe just lacking in some way. So I was very impressed with how each subclass really drilled into a certain playstyle. Not only that, but they all felt very functional. I also just appreciated the added lore in the document to describe the history of the Illrigger and how they work, how to roleplay them, how their alignment typically works, and if you don't want to play that alignment, how that might work as well. I think this is really just an excellent showing from MCDM. I wouldn't expect a stinker from Matt Colville and team, but I was pleasantly surprised by this class. There's very few things that I would change, and the things that I would change are basically just minor tweaks or slight wording changes, but I would still basically keep the feature in general intact, which is not the same that you could say for maybe a lot of homebrew that we've seen. But overall, I think this is really great. I'd be interested in actually playing the class. I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to. But all the subclasses are pretty interesting. I'd probably be interested in playing any one of them, maybe the Sanguine Knight the least, but they're all very, very cool. But yeah, that is the Illrigger. Again, I'm very happy with the way that it looks. If you want to purchase it, you have basically kind of two options. It is available on D&D Beyond if you use D&D Beyond as your sort of main place where you play and you create your character sheets and you play off that character sheet. However, if you don't use D&D Beyond that way, it is available on the MCDM website. I'll have that linked down in the description below. It is a little cheaper there as well. It's like a few dollars cheaper. So if you just want the PDF to have it available for you and be able to share with your friends and things like that, you can buy it directly from them. They'll send you the download link and you can download it from them there and save a little bit of money that way. So let me know what you think about the Illrigger down in the comments. If you're someone who's aware of MCDM and has been following them for a while and has seen the early iterations of the Illrigger, how have the early iterations of it changed over time to what is available now? Because I didn't see it during any of the play tests. What is your favorite subclass from it? What are your favorite features of it? What do you think about maybe some of my minor critiques of certain features that might be a little too broken? I also think it's interesting that nothing I said that I would change is things that are underpowered. I think most things are overpowered. And it seems like they maybe started with features that were way too strong and then kind of nerfed things down from there. Because I think it's just easier to kind of dial things down than turn things up. But yeah, let me know what you think down in those comments. And again, while you're going down to those comments, please hit that like button. If you're a new viewer to this channel or a returning viewer and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet and you want to see more videos from me, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out quite a bit. I have new videos coming out every Sunday and Wednesday, so you have that to look forward to. I appreciate all your guys' time, and I'll see you in the next one.